Are you ready to unleash your full potential? Hello and welcome to the Peak Performance Hour, where we dive deep into the secrets of success and empower you to take your life and career to the next level fast. I am Susan Urban, your host and peak performance coach, and I'm here to guide you on a transformative journey toward greatness. Each week, I will tackle your burning questions and provide live coaching sessions that will propel you toward your goals at lightning speed. Now, whether you're striving for better health, greater wealth, or more happiness, I've got the science-based strategies and proven tactics to help you achieve it all. No dream is too big, and no challenge is too daunting when you have the right mindset and the right guidance. So buckle up and get ready to shatter your limits. And join me as we embark on this exhilarating quest for peak performance. Your extraordinary future starts now. Hello and welcome. I am so excited to be here with you tonight, and I hope you're well, first of all. Today we're going to talk about a big topic on how you can reboot, regain your self-confidence, especially in a world that is filled with so much chaos, stress, war, uncertainty, you name it. In fact, we're going to really dive deep into how to actually overcome things like anxiety and negative thinking and that inner critic. And even a lot of people right now might be catastrophizing the future and kind of being a little bit pessimistic, right? So how can we reboot our self-confidence, even though all this is going on around us, and have real faith into a positive future? That's on the agenda today, and I'm really hoping that you can get a lot of value out of this. Now, the other thing that we're gonna absolutely do is I'm gonna give you a drill that you can use anytime, any place, that will amplify your self-confidence on command, on demand, when you need it. And this is one of those self-meditation, self-hypnotic processes. So, where should we begin? Well, I guess what I'd like to share with you is that the reason I do what I do today is because of my own challenges with anxiety, depression, and a lot of self-esteem issues. And just like so many of my clients who experience similar symptoms, and anxiety typically comes with a lot of fear, self-doubt, overwhelm, overthinking, catastrophizing the future, feeling very unsettled within your body, irritable, a lot of mood swings. Sometimes it's even accompanied by rage, anger. But really it's a sense of not feeling comfortable in your own skin and never really experiencing inner peace or self-confidence. And again, like I said, this is something I battled with for years, and like so many of my clients, I was being told, well, you know, you should go to therapy. Okay, no problem. So I went to therapy for quite a few years, and nothing really much changed. And of course, I tried motivational videos, just like so many of my clients, right? Journaling and meditation and positive affirmations. And then the next step was prescription drugs. That's where I drew the line, and I said, you know what, there has to be something out there that will actually help me, that will change me, that will make me feel better about who I am, instead of feeling self-conscious, instead of comparing myself to other people mercilessly, and instead of finding all these faults with me, what is not working in my life, and how am I a failure, and literally that negative self-talk, that inner critic, even though uninvited, was definitely dependable. And like I said, after all of these inventions, nothing really changed. And I became very frustrated, but at the same time, I'm very, very relentless. And I said, I will find a way to overcome this, and if this is the last thing I do. And I did. And this is exactly what I help so many of my clients with today. They often come in with overwhelming stress. They feel like their mind never stops. They're going, 60 miles an hour in their mind. They don't know how to shut their mind off. That is often accompanied by physical symptoms, insomnia, and they have already tried everything. The traditional, methods that I already mentioned, like therapy. Many of my clients are on medication when they first come to me, but they often say none of that. Yes, it helps suppress the symptoms and it helps me kind of detach from my emotions, but I don't want to be like that. I want to be healed. I want to be healthy. I want to be on top of my game. I want to regain my confidence. And I've found that there's actually a holistic, natural way that can help somebody achieve that. Now, I want to also break a couple of myths about this whole thing about anxiety, what we are told what it actually is, and the truth about what it really is. So here's some of the things that I've heard. Often people are being told that they have anxiety because of a brain chemistry, or because of their genetics, or because, well, that's just how they're wired, or this is just part of their personality, and that they need certain, or maybe that their hormones are out of whack, or that they need certain medications to balance their brain out, right? And the truth is, and often then get diagnosed and even labeled, right, with anxiety, ADD, ADHD, and no, I'm not a medical doctor, but remember, people typically come to me when they have already exhausted the medical help, the experts, the specialists. The problem is still there. They're at their wits' end. They're exhausted. They want to be a phenomenal performer, which they are, but it's the anxiety that keeps them from being on top of the game, from being their best self, right? And here's the truth about anxiety. There is nothing wrong with your mind, nothing at all. What is actually wrong? Because here's the thing, your mind, your brain is doing exactly what it was trained to do. And so what anxiety really requires for us to change it so that you can regain your confidence, so that you can feel that inner peace again and that sense of comfort, feeling comfortable in your own skin again, is, you guessed it, retraining the mind. And anybody can do that. And I want to explain to you and inform you what do I mean by retraining the mind, and how anxiety actually, little by little, develops in a person. So again, in my world, anxiety is not a dis-ease, it's not a sickness, even though things are not at ease, right? Dis-ease, what it actually is, it's a negative habit. It is a bad habit that was developed unconsciously, meaning without your permission, without your consent. So I'm going to take you back to the beginning so that you can understand, when you can follow me, what actually really happened for somebody to ultimately develop what is labeled in our society as anxiety. You see, we all were born, every one of us was born with unshakable self-confidence, self-esteem, and self-worth. We were all born perfectly perfect, full of potential, full of abilities, skills, talents, full of, each one of us has something very special about us that is unique. And so therefore we already were born perfectly perfect. But then, inconveniently, what happens is this thing called life. And that actually isn't all too bad in itself, but it's what happens in life that becomes interesting. And here's what I'm referring to. When we are children, up until the age of 7, 8, 9, experts are still trying to figure out the right number here, but up until the age of 9 or so, we are not only, again, we're born pure, innocent, right? Completely open. We literally take everything in like a sponge. And up until the age of 9 or so, we as children, toddlers, and even infants do not have the ability to discern good or bad, right or wrong. We do not yet have a conscious mind yet, meaning a developed mind that has the ability to think logically, that has the ability to think, oh, this is the past, that's the future, that has the ability to say, oh, mom is just in a bad mood, oh, dad is just overworked. Up until the age of 9, we take everything very personal, very literal, and very in the moment. And now, in a perfect world, and for a child to grow up with a lot of confidence and with a healthy self-esteem and a good amount of self-worth, for that to happen, what must happen is that child must feel safe, they must feel protected, they must feel connected to their tribe, to their family, they must have a sense of, I belong here. They must feel like they are actually wanted and very important in this society. They must feel special. They must have the ability to express themselves authentically as well as emotionally, and ultimately self-expression. And let's be honest, how many people, and even ask yourself this question, if you look at your childhood, and even though I have so many people tell me I had a wonderful childhood, my parents loved me, all these great things, but how many people do you really know that can sincerely and honestly check off all of these boxes? But let's just say you did. Here's another thing that happened that's very interesting. There were so many experiences and moments you had as a child, and by the way, you may not remember this, because again, this might be outside of your conscious awareness, because during that time, the only way you navigate through the world is through your emotions. Something either feels good or it doesn't feel good. And your conscience, something feels right to you or it doesn't. And if you had moments where people criticized you, or they judged you, or they blamed you, or they humiliated you, or they rejected you, or they lied to you, or they cheated you, or they used sarcastic humor. Again, that's another thing a child really doesn't understand. A kid, again, doesn't yet have the intelligence to understand, oh, this was just a joke, it's supposed to be funny. They take everything personal. But all of those moments where you were hurt, and again, I'm not talking about the intention of the authority figures around you, because we don't know, you may know that, right? That's not really what's so important here. It's what you experienced during those moments, when you felt hurt, and when you felt the pain, and when you felt the sting, and when you couldn't speak up for yourself, or when you were confused. So now those moments, especially if you didn't have somebody there to help you process and understand, but what did stay with you is the pain and the hurt and the confusion sometimes. Those were the moments, believe it or not, that caused unresolved stress that remains in the body. And in time, because so many people had repetitions of this builds up and builds up and builds up. And then very often as an adult, the person will experience anxiety or panic attacks or insomnia. So therefore, really, you're looking at an experience that I would define PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. And I know in this day and age, this is a big word, but that really is what anxiety is. Now let's just go back a little bit, because there's an important distinction to be made. Even though, right, these, and most importantly, authority figures are most influential to children, right? Parents, teachers, family members, older siblings, people like that. It's not so important, quite frankly, that there were negative messages or maybe even attacks, or maybe you were scolded or hurt, right? Physically or mentally or emotionally. But the most important distinction here is that in time you started to believe them In other words, you translated that in your little mind every time you were scolded and blamed and shamed and humiliated and rejected and judged and criticized. You interpreted that as, I am not enough. I don't deserve to be loved. I am not worthy. Success is not meant for me. Everybody else is much smarter than me. It's my fault my parents got divorced. Because again, remember, literally a child, because we didn't have people there to explain to us, right? Hey, this is the real truth behind, this is what really happened. We, within moments, make meaning out of those experiences, and it's the meaning that is what causes the anxiety. Because if we begin to believe, I am not worthy, right? If we believe the bully that bullied us, right? If we believe our parents who in some of their most stressed moments might have said, you will never amount to anything, or, you know, I wish you were as smart as your brother, or whatever it might have been, right? But I always tell my clients too, I said, remember, we all carry generational trauma, and most parents were raised by unhealed parents. So their intention might have been very good for you, for us, right? But if they don't have the tools on how to parent properly, if they don't have the compassion or the empathy or the curiosity or the right kind of care, and if they weren't trained properly, and if maybe their parents treated them, how could they possibly give us the unconditional love that every human being deserves, right? And so really they're just passing down information or experiences that they experienced in their childhood. And so this really shouldn't be an opportunity to blame, because blaming doesn't really serve us, but rather to understand that, wait a minute, wow, now I understand that it was my interpretation out of those experiences. I started to believe that I am not enough because one authority figure told me repeatedly, right? Let me give you a perfect example of somebody I worked with recently who came to me and he said he has such fear of public speaking, and he's been on all kinds of medications. He's been to Toastmasters, done therapy. He still has this fear. And he says, but now that there's so much at stake, now he's in a leadership position, he needs to speak up in the boardroom. He noticed that he has been overlooked for raises. He was just like, I'm done. I really want to be able to speak on my behalf and be confident about it and not feel so nervous and tense. Well, lo and behold, you know, I take him through an experience where we get to the root cause of what really happened, and there he is, 5 years old, having comfortable dinner with his family, right? His mom, dad, and they're having a wonderful conversation. All of a sudden, this little 5-year-old says something that apparently was very inappropriate, wrong, whatever. And the father gets up and is just completely appalled, smacks the kid, right? And the little boy doesn't even know what he said wrong, but clearly something happened that caused dad to be very upset. And the only thing the father says, don't you ever talk to us like that. But the kid really still didn't understand. But his little mind, right, the mind of the 5-year-old, literally in that moment decided it is not safe to speak to authority figures. And his subconscious mind takes a snapshot in that moment, and this is your first training rep, and literally that little boy decides, talking to authority figures, dangerous, bad, don't ever do it again. And so the safety lesson, right? Once we went back and he discovered that it was all because of that experience, he was able to change his perspective. He was able to realize, oh my gosh, I made meaning that it's not safe to speak with authority figures, when what really happened is dad got upset with me because I happened to say the wrong, and it has nothing to do with speaking with authority figures. And from that moment, his confidence came back because he realized that he literally held on to this belief for such a long time that wasn't even true. And so many of us hold on, and this is something I discovered about myself. My anxiety was all due to all of these limiting beliefs that I've been holding on about myself, that very disempowering, destructive beliefs I was holding on about myself, about the world, how I'm not as good, comparing myself to other people, this imposter syndrome, if it sounds familiar to you, right? And once I was able to recognize that it was these experiences and the meaning I made, that's what caused my transformation. That's when I was finally able to be like, oh my gosh, it's really nobody else's fault. And it's really, you don't get to blame yourself either, because it's not like you consciously decided that. But the belief is what stays with us, right? And us believing the bully and the critic and all those harsh words, and then deciding, oh yeah, this is true. That's often what causes anxiety and self-doubt and fear. And by the way, so many people, the root cause of their anxiety might be when they were small, but then they have a perfectly perfect, safe, wonderful, happy life, and then all of a sudden, the divorce happens, or the heart attack happens, or they get fired, and now all of a sudden, the anxiety seems to have come out of nowhere. But that divorce or that being fired was just a trigger that literally, where the system was re-triggered, and it reminded the person about a past experience, and now the anxiety is in full bloom. And so when we retrain the mind and teach you really how, first of all, what caused the anxiety and how you can start to think differently about yourself and feel differently about yourself and what the truth is about yourself, that's when you can, again, reclaim that self-confidence and that self-worth and that self-esteem that has always been there, but it has been clouded and polluted by all these destructive, disempowering beliefs that are often accompanied by negative emotions, right? Because if I fundamentally believe I am not worthy, I'm not good enough, I don't deserve, nobody should love me because, I can't be loved, or I shouldn't claim love, then notice what that feels like. And then of course our actions are going to be supported by those negative emotions, right? Of blame and shame and fear and hurt and pain and all those things. And then of course we can't act as confidently as we want to. So I hope this makes sense in realizing really how our personality gets shaped, right? Because then our real personality literally has kind of been suppressed and subdued. And when you can recognize that it was because we literally bought into somebody else's opinion, it was just an opinion. It was all because somebody had a bad day, or because they were unhealed, or because they didn't know better. But because we didn't know that as a kid, we took it very personally, very literally, and that's what causes a lot of problems. And the best news is we can change that if we want to. And that, again, when you feel confident, when you feel empowered in yourself, when you can start to talk to yourself again like you care, right? Like a coach who wants the best for you, like a parent who loves you unconditionally, like a mentor who wants nothing but the best for you. When you can start talking to yourself like that again, and like a friend who always has time for you, who would never judge you, just simply listens with an open mind. When you can start treating yourself like that again, imagine how you would feel about your future. Imagine how you feel about the future now as you begin to think about that. And I promised you a drill that will allow you to recognize and to feel the self-confidence that you already have within you. And the more you focus on that, the more it will serve you, the more it will expand for you, the more it will affect and infect you and everybody around you. So here it is. Now, it's important for this exercise, if you want to participate, please make sure you're in a place where you're not driving or very distracted. In other words, this will be a really good moment for you to take some time for yourself, pay attention to yourself, just be a little bit distraction-free. You don't need to be in a cave or anything like that, but just where you can literally go inside, where you can close your eyes, where you can pay attention to my words and just begin to imagine. And because again, with eyes closed, it's much easier. And when you can give yourself undivided attention, you're actually gonna benefit massively from this. Okay, so here we go. I want you to right now think about a time in your life where either you wanted something really bad and it was so important to you, and you were like, I'm going to get this. No matter what, no matter how, I'm going to do this. I'm going to get this. And remember, context is irrelevant, actually. It doesn't matter what, how big, how small. Doesn't matter how magnificent or the magnitude of this. It could literally be a small, tiny thing. We're simply going after the feeling. So a time in your life where you wanted something, and maybe you were even salivating. You were so hungry, you were so driven. Maybe it was the first job, the first car, maybe it was a girl, a guy, maybe it was whatever it is that you wanted. You made up your mind and you were like, I'm doing this. And then you nailed it. Maybe it was a race that you, or a speech, or a trophy that you won, black belt, whatever it was, first day school, right? And when you nailed it, so it's either an experience like that or a time in your life where you felt so confident, you felt so competent, you felt on top of the world, a moment in your life where you felt unshakable, unbreakable, unstoppable. That's right. Think about a time in your life like that. Maybe it was the day you got married. Notice, if you are there now, be there now. See what you saw in that moment when you were so confident. You literally were so full of yourself, not from an ego perspective, not from a boasting, bragging, but you literally felt so good about yourself. You felt so proud. You felt so accomplished, so achieved. You had so much respect for yourself. You literally acknowledged yourself from the top to the bottom. And as you are there now, see what you saw. And when you're there, hear what you heard and hear those sounds again. Listen to what you listened to then. Maybe it was applause. Maybe it was people cheering. Maybe it was complete quiet. Maybe it was music playing. Whatever it was, be there now. Hear that. And notice what it felt like. Notice what it felt like to feel on top of the world, to feel you confident, competent, calm, comfortable in your skin, so full of life, so full of yourself, so full of appreciation, pride, gratitude, maybe joy, happiness, bliss, whatever it might have been, enthusiasm, excitement, brilliance. And notice that feeling. Now, there's a feeling in your body that the minute you're now feeling those feelings, notice where that feeling is in your body. And just allow yourself to marinate in this experience one more time. Be there now, one more time. Feel what you feel. That's right, feel those feelings. Notice where they begin. Notice where they spread from. That's right, notice that feeling in your body. For a lot of people, it's in their belly. Other people say it's in their chest. Some people say it's actually in their head or in their throat. But just notice what you notice. Be there now, one more time. See what you saw, hear what you heard. Feel what you felt. And now, with this feeling, recognizing how far you've come, all the challenges, trials, tribulations you've already overcome, notice as you think about your future now, recognizing who you have already become, despite and because. Notice as you think about your future now, what are you feeling now about this little problem? That's right, because you know that your past was just a training ground for your future success. That's right. And you can marinate in this as long as you want. Wishing you all my best. Much love. See you next time.